Fighting card!
What is up, YouTube? This is Nanashi back with another Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck profile video. This time I'll be showing you the changes and updates to my Spirit deck. It's been almost 2 years since this deck was given any kind of real improvements, and that's because spirits, like mostly Outlier subtypes, are horribly undersupported and mechanically very fragile. We did get a nice boon from the Shinob ritual monsters, of course, but that was 4 years ago. And while it did help rip away the mechanical limiters of the archetype, it forced the deck to play a specific way of go second, summon Rock Salt, and pray they don't negate the ritual. That being said, Konami finally gave generic spirits another new support card, and well, honestly, the deck still plays relatively the same as before, but it has a few more options to perform with and isn't completely fated to be a go second deck with the right hand. And you'll see what I mean when we take a closer look. Starting with the monster lineup, we have a playset of the all-new Konohanasakuya, and she's everything I was hoping that spirits would eventually get. Now before I go any farther, I should stress that every spirit monster shares the same common effects. They can all only be normal summoned or special summoned in specific ways, depending on the card, and at the end phase of any turn that they were summoned that way, they return to the hand. On that note, Konohanasakuya can only be inherently special summoned from the hand if you control another spirit, and if she's in the graveyard, she can banish herself to negate the effects of a spirit you control at the end phase of the turn. And just like that, we get both a new way to maintain a board and, well, there's no polite way to say it, a very valuable link fodder card. We have a playset of a Mono YuGiOh, the obvious partner card for Konohanasakuya. It can't be special summoned, and while it's face up, no monster effects can be activated except for spirit monsters. And yes, banishing Sakuya makes old Rock Salt here stick around permanently. We have a playset of Aratama, the dedicated searcher for spirits. It cannot be special summoned, but it searches any spirit from deck to hand on normal summon or when it's flipped face up, and that's not once per turn. We also have a playset of Nikitama, their best extender. It cannot be special summoned, but during the turn you summon it or flip it face up, you are granted one additional normal summon of a spirit monster, and that is a hard once per turn effect. But if it goes to the graveyard while you control a spirit monster, it lets you draw a card, and that effect is not once per turn. We have a pair of Shinob Crane, and I know it's not exactly a great card, but it's actually useful now. It cannot be special summoned, but it gives you a once per turn draw if another spirit monster is summoned while it's already out. We have a pair of Yamato no Kami, and I guess if you look at it right, this could be considered a prototype for Konohanasakuya. It can only be inherently special summoned from the hand by banishing a spirit out of the graveyard, and if it destroys a monster by battle, it also destroys a spell trap without targeting. We have one Hinokagusuchi, a high-level spirit I mostly just use as fodder for other cards and effects, but thanks to Konohanasakuya, he actually stands a much higher chance of being summoned. It cannot be special summoned, but if he successfully does battle damage, the opponent has to drop their entire hand to the graveyard right before they draw on their next turn. And we have a playset each of Shinob Baron Peacock and Shinob Baroness Peacock. Now obviously they can both only be ritual summoned using the ritual spell Shinober's Calling, and when they return to the hand at the end phase, like all spirits do, they leave behind a pair of 4-star tokens. But when summoned, Baron also returns up to 3 monsters the opponent controls to the hand, and if he returns at least one successfully, he lets you special summon any 4-star or lower spirit from hand, ignoring summoning conditions. Shinob Baroness can return up to 3 spell traps the opponent controls to the deck, and if she returns at least one, she lets you special summon a 4-star or lower spirit monster from your deck, ignoring summoning conditions. Next is the spell cards. We have one Call by the Grave. We have a playset of Fires of Doomsday, and yes, I am still using Token Gang for right now. It summons a pair of tokens to your field, but you cannot summon anything else for the rest of the turn, and the tokens cannot be used to tribute summon except for the summon of a dark monster. One Foolish Burial, one Harpy's Feather Duster. We have a playset of Pre-Preparation of Rites, the best search card the Shinob rituals could have asked for. It searches any ritual spell from deck to hand, then adds a ritual monster whose name is listed on the spell from the deck or graveyard to the hand. One Raigeki. We have one Scapegoat because it's unfortunately still too good to be played at any more than that. It summons 4 tokens to your field, but you cannot summon anything else for the turn you use this, and the tokens cannot be used as tribute fodder. We have a playset of Shinob Calling, the ritual spell that summons both Peacock ritual monsters. It also lets you banish spirit monsters from the graveyard as part of the ritual cost. And we have a playset of Trade-In. Now since we don't play any traps, let's just slide right into the side deck. I have a playset each of Cosmic Cyclone, Dark Ruler No More, Solemn Johnson, Solemn Strike, and Solemn Warning. And finally is the extra deck. We have one Fairy Cheer Girl, a card to make use of the rare 2 copies of Nikitama in hand. It requires 2 level 4 fairies and attaches 1 material to draw 1 card. Detaching Nikitama while you have another spirit out means you get a 2-for-1 draw. We have one Gallant Granite, a card that makes Rock Salt way more reliable. It detaches the material to search any rock monster from deck to hand, and it can also detach to special summon a rock from hand face down, but spirits don't like that. We have one Gravity Controller to take advantage of those 2 Xyz Blades. It requires any non-link monster in the extra monster zone as material, but it cannot be used as material for a link summon on the turn it was played. It also can't die in battle with a monster in the main monster zones while it's in the extra monster zone, but if it battled a monster in the extra monster zone, both of them go back to the extra deck before damage calculation. We have a pair of Link Spider, something to take advantage of all that token generation. It requires a normal monster as material, and it can summon a normal monster from hand to a zone it points to, but it's purely in here for the down arrow. We have a pair of Salamangrade Almirage to take easy advantage of Nikitama. It requires a normal summon or set monster with under 1000 attack, contribute itself during either turn to make a monster you control unkillable by card effects for the turn, and resummons itself if a normal summoned or set monster you control dies in battle. We have one Ausa the Earth Charmer Immovable, mostly just to sit on if you go first, but it does have some synergy. She resummons any Earth monster from the opponent's grave to either of her zones, but if she's destroyed on your field after being link summoned, she adds any Earth monster from deck to hand with 1500 or less defense. We have one Cross Sheep, a card to protect from direct interference, just a little. If a monster is special summoned to one of its zones, it can trigger a different effect based on what it points to. In this deck's case, if it points to a ritual, it gives you a draw 2 and discard 2, and if it points to an Xyz, all monsters the opponent controls lose 700 attack permanently. We have one Hita the Fire Charmer Ablaze, for the same reason as Ausa, at least partly. She resummons any fire monster from the opponent's grave to either of her zones, and if she is destroyed on your field, she adds any fire monster from deck to hand with 1500 less defense. There's no targets for the search, but I summon Almirage way too often, and it is kind of funny to steal the opponent's Ash Blossom and use it as link material. We have one Nightmare Cerberus, a basic utility link. Discards a target and destroy an opponent's special summon monster in the main monster zone, draws a card if it's co-linked on resolution, and co-linked monsters you control cannot die to card effects. We have one Nightmare Phoenix, another basic utility link. Discards the target and destroy an opponent's spell trap, it draws a card after if it's co-linked on resolution, and co-linked monsters you control cannot die to battle. We have one Proxy Dragon, a literal card to bridge the 2 nightmares. It also offsets the destruction of any card or cards you control by destroying a card that it points to. We have one Berserker of the Tenyi, a holdover from my efforts to make a Spirit Blend that used the Tenyi field spell and possibly the counter trap, because the tokens and face-down monsters existed. It didn't really work out, but he is an easy to summon beatstick with 3000 attack who just requires one of his materials to be a link, so he's not all bad. And we have one Nightmare Unicorn, yet another basic utility link. Discards the target and send any card on the field back to the deck, it draws a card after if it's co-linked on resolution, and during your draw phase, you can draw as many cards as you have co-linked nightmare monsters instead of just one. And that is the deck. You know, I talked up Konohanasakuya for this deck when I first heard about it, and she is a fantastic card, but she really didn't change as much as I was hoping she would. But she lets me keep a board presence out, gives me valuable extension, and she's not too bad offensively as a 3-star, so I'm overall happy with her. I just hope this isn't all the support spirits are gonna get, and if we do get more, they don't make us wait 4 more years for it like the last one. I thank you for watching the deck profile video. If you can think of any ways to improve this pure spirit deck, feel free to let me know. In the meantime, this has been Nanashi, signing out.